Recently, the New York Times published what appears to be a glowing profile of Elizabeth Holmes, who of course was the fraudster behind Theranos, and basically was found guilty of defrauding investors through this venture with Theranos. Nonetheless, the New York Times writes this profile piece in which the author describes her as, quote, an authentic and sympathetic person. Authentic is a weird word to use in relation to a woman who has been a fraudster and has been proven to be a fraudster. But nonetheless, the author even admits that she got fooled by Holmes herself. And so I want to give you some excerpts from the piece that we'll discuss. But before we do, why don't we take a look at what happened with Holmes and Theranos, according to The Verge.
Elizabeth Holmes built her entire Theranos empire around a product that was supposed to solve one of the biggest hurdles in healthcare: access to affordable blood testing. With her revolutionary Edison machine, a single drop of blood would be able to run up to 240 tests, from albumin to white blood cell count and everything in between. It was going to change healthcare as we knew it.
Our work is in the belief that access to health information is a basic human right.
By 2015, Forbes named Holmes the youngest and wealthiest self-made billionaire in the US. But there was a catch. Behind closed doors, the Edison machine simply didn't work nearly as well as promised. And Theranos was essentially a sham. But with hundreds of millions of dollars in funding, Theranos allegedly continued to persuade investors into believing in their cause. And the investments kept coming.
Henry Kissinger gave $3 million, invested $3 million into this. I caught that name in the list that they showed in that video. Anyway.
So I want to say two things already about this, and then we'll get to how the New York Times is trying to revive her career, because why not? They couldn't find anyone who's actually suffering in the country. So why don't we go find a criminal and try to,
launder her reputation.
Clean up her reputation. Anyway, so number one, there is a part of the story that I absolutely love, which is that it shows all of the so-called great men, the masters of the universe that corporate media always tells us about, morons. They all gave money to her. Henry Kissinger, the top finance guys, private equity, hedge funds, venture capital, every super famous people, super rich people, they all poured in money to her. None of them even checked to see if the thing worked. Nah, they're not all they're hyped up to be, man. So don't let that mythology make you think, oh, there's some great unreachable people. No, they could be complete and utter schmucks chasing fool's gold. And then on that video, you saw how her voice was really weirdly thick. That's not her real voice. And in this article, they explain, no, she doesn't talk like that in real life at all. So everything about her was a fraud. But hey, New York Times, why don't you try to, while you're, by the way, oftentimes smearing progressives and lying about them, why don't you try to help her for no reason?
Okay, do you want to get into how they kind of cleaned up her reputation? Okay, so the piece is titled, Liz Holmes wants you to forget about Elizabeth. So she goes by Liz instead of Elizabeth now. And the author of the piece, Amy Chozik, asserts that while Elizabeth is a notorious criminal, Liz is a doting mom who isn't so bad once you get to know her.
Oh, well, okay, then everything's fine now. She's Liz, Anna. Oh, okay. She's not Elizabeth anymore. Tell us more, New York Times.
Well, she writes, I realized that I was essentially writing a story about two different people. There was Elizabeth, celebrated in the media as a rock star inventor whose brilliance dazzled illustrious rich men and whose criminal trial captivated the world. Okay, let's pause. No, that's not even a good description of Elizabeth.
Yeah,
that's not a good description. She defrauded people and was found guilty of it.
They took her trial for being a criminal that robbed people and turned it into, it was captivating the whole world. Like as if it was a positive.
Insane. Let's get to the rest of it though. Then there was Liz, the mom of two who, for the past year, has been volunteering for a rape crisis hotline, who can't stomach R-rated movies, oh, she's so wholesome, and who rushed after me one afternoon with a paper towel to wipe a mix of sand and her dog slobber off my shoe. Oh my God.
Oh, that's
what an American hero.
She sounds so lovely.
She's just like us.
I can't wait to give her money.
Okay. So the idea that there are two sides to Liz Holmes is interesting because there are many sides to many people, right? And what's interesting is how the New York Times will pick and choose when they describe the complexity of whoever they're writing about, whatever the subject is, right? In this case, I mean, the writer really goes out of her way to show that, like, no, there might be a bad side to her, but there are some real good sides here. And it feels like there's an emphasis on that. So she writes, if you hate Elizabeth Holmes, you probably think her feigned perma-hoarseness, meaning her voice, was part of an elaborate scheme to defraud investors. If you are a person who is sympathetic to Holmes, then the James Earl Jones inflection was a sign of the impossible gymnastics that female founders must perform to be taken seriously.
Oh, shut up.
100%. Okay, there's more. Let's go back to the graphic.
She had to rob you guys because female entrepreneurs have it harder. She didn't have a choice. She had to pretend to be a person she isn't, to have a voice she doesn't have.
It's what the girl bosses do, Cenk. It's what the girl bosses do.
I didn't know she was all about female empowerment. Tell me more.
If you spend time with Holmes, as I did, she writes, then you might come away like me and think that, as with many things about Elizabeth Holmes, it was both. Okay, so Holmes didn't seem like a hero or villain. She seemed, like most people, somewhere in between.
No, most people didn't defraud people, others of hundreds of millions of dollars.
So hold on, let me understand something. She defrauded people, was prosecuted as a result of defrauding people. And by the way, she was marketing something that clearly didn't work and was lying to the public about it. And that also has some ramifications, not just for the investors, right? But if she has this malfunctioning product that she brings to market and doctors start using it and it turns out to, like there were instances where the blood testing system that she had, right? The Theranos system that she developed, it would find diseases or test positive for diseases that the individual didn't have.
Because it was a scam.
It would have caused
but she's somewhere in the middle, guys.
Issues for human beings. So like okay, so there's there's that side of her, which pales in comparison or is equivalent to her wiping your feet or your shoes of her dog's slobber. Who cares?
What did you expect her to do? Did you you went in there to rehabilitate her? Let's keep it real. Okay, you had an agenda and you executed it. But if you were actually open-minded, then that's a different problem. You go in there and did you expect that she was gonna kidnap you or something or chain you up somewhere? No, of course she's gonna be a semi-regular human being who has kids and takes care of them and the kids have blankies. Like she seems like she's like a babe in the woods. The reporter like, oh my God, does she have a dungeon? Is she evil? Oh, she eats like the rest of us. She has kids like the rest of us. What did you expect?
She is a con artist. And con artists know how to manipulate people, okay? Could it be that maybe she was manipulating you? Okay, so there's more. So as we mentioned, the author of this piece outright admits that Elizabeth Holmes is manipulative and might have even potentially fleeced her. So I was admittedly swept up in Liz as an authentic and sympathetic person. She's gentle and charismatic in a quiet way. My editor laughed at me when I shared these impressions, telling me, and I quote, Amy, you got rolled. I vigorously disagreed. You don't know her like I do.
Oh, Jesus. But by the way, that same editor was like, go ahead and print this propaganda piece for a criminal because as long as they're somehow among the elites, we're gonna service them, because that's what the New York Times does.
To be fair, she almost does some journalism in other parts of the piece.
Because we're fair. And you know what? It turns out she's somewhere in the middle.
She's somewhere in the middle. She's somewhere in the middle. One of Holmes's friends requested anonymity to caution me not to believe everything Holmes says.
Somebody had to warn you about that?
No,
you're a reporter for the New York Times, and somebody had to warn you that a legendary
con artist
might try to trick you into liking her. Well, I'm glad you were duly warned.
Okay, this warning stuck with me. It got at something that had been gnawing on me since I first met Holmes. How do you have an honest conversation with a person whose fraud trial has played out so publicly? You don't. You're supposed to be skeptical,
yes.
Right? And by the way, you're supposed to be skeptical as a journalist when it comes to everything you're writing about, right? Everyone's claims. Like, all sorts of people are gonna make all sorts of claims. A journalist is supposed to investigate those claims and determine whether the subject is telling the truth or lying. That is what journalism is supposed to be.
Yeah, and
not just be like a stenographer where you like regurgitate whatever it is that the subject is saying.
Right.
That is not journalism.
Look, we're not telling you had to like attack her. But you have to go in with deep skepticism for a person who's convicted of fraud, and then test her in 100 different ways, and then see if she passes those tests of honesty, et cetera, et cetera. Not go in and go, oh my God, she didn't murder me. I think she's a good person.
It gets worse. It gets worse. She says, I tried to ask Holmes this directly, like meaning, how can I trust you? How do I believe you when you've been convicted of basically lying? But how could I ask someone who was nursing her 11-day-old baby on a white sofa 2 feet away if she was actually conning me? This is not the right story for you to cover. You should have passed this assignment off to someone else.
No, I'm sorry.
To an adult who isn't easily manipulated by someone who's simply taking care of their baby.
Okay, so there's two huge parts of that simple quote. Number one, look, now I'm gonna feel bad, but really you gotta go get a different job. If you can't ask a tough question because someone's on a white sofa, you're in the wrong profession, okay? But to be fair to her, like nobody thought that, like her editor didn't think she was in the wrong profession, because remember, everyone in the building treats powerful people this same exact way. Anna just said it a second ago. This is exactly what they do with politicians. Right? They're like, well, I mean, how could I ask him a tough question? He's so powerful and mighty. So I bowed down and wrote a puff piece that helps his propaganda when it isn't remotely true. That is the groupthink at the New York Times. The second part of that telling quote, the fact that it's a nice house and she has a nice white couch made a difference for her. Why? Because, she's upper middle class or upper class. And I relate to that, I empathize with that. Rich people must be good people. No, she got rich by defrauding people. That doesn't make her a good person. But she's telling you, subconsciously she was cued into, since this person is rich, she must be a good person. Look at how white her sofa is.
Holmes, she writes, is unlike anyone I've ever met. Modest but mesmerizing.
Oh, dude, make out already.
I mean, no, but seriously, if you are in her presence, it is impossible not to believe her.
Oh, it's definitely possible. Put me in the room.
Not to be taken with her and be taken in by her. Liz Holmes and her partner Billy Evans know that. I politely declined their invitation.
Because she would immediately fall in love if she was in this. Guys,
it's embarrassing for the New York Times.
It's super embarrassing.
Yeah, I can't believe that they printed this. I can't believe that they thought this was a good idea. I can't believe the reporter here, A, is a reporter at all, but B, was able to put these insane excerpts in this piece having to do with a woman who defrauded people. And defrauded people who invested in a product that could have gone to market in the medical industry and caused actual harm to ordinary people. That is the story, that's it, period. I don't care that she wants to be called Liz. I don't care that she has an 11-day-old baby. I don't care that she has a white couch. I don't care who she's married to. I don't care what she's wiping, including the shoes of the reporter here. All of that stuff is irrelevant. The focus of the story has been completely blurred by this woman who did this piece to launder the reputation of a con artist. That is the story here, plain and simple.
Yeah, for the reporter, I genuinely feel embarrassed. So I don't even want to talk about it anymore. It is what it is, and it's, to me, the story is the New York Times. That editors thought that this made sense, that this was a good piece that they should share with their readers. Why? The New York Times serves the elite. That is their audience. The people that are in the top 10% that are part of the establishment that are generally very wealthy. So when there is a powerful and wealthy person, the New York Times believes them and wants their readers to believe them. So no matter, in this case, a literal criminal convicted of fraud, and they go, no, we have to help her. She's got a beautiful white sofa. She must be protected. We must do propaganda on her behalf. Do they show that same kind of generosity to outsiders?
Nope.
To people who are downtrodden?
Nope.
To the average American?
Nope.
To the middle class, to the working poor? Now, every once in a while, they'll do a story of like, oh, did you know that there's homeless people? Did you know that the working poor are struggling? Like, but it's the exception, not the rule.
Exactly.
The rule is service the rich and the powerful. They just happen to do it in such a brazen way with such a brazen criminal that it caught people's attention. And even so barely, like we caught our attention, but is the rest of corporate media, mainstream media going, oh, New York Times should be embarrassed about this?
Well, it's funny you should ask, Cenk, because Michael Barbaro, who I don't know if he's still hosting The Daily, which is the podcast for the New York Times. I think he does sometimes. He tweeted about the story, and get a load of this. Utterly engrossing profile of Elizabeth Holmes by Amy Chozick that openly wrestles with the author's own journalistic dilemma, how much to believe a proven liar. But I'm not interested in the journalist. Like, I'm not interested in reading stories about the journalists. The journalist making the story about her is also a problem, okay? And the fact that the journalist's big question, the thing that she's struggling with is whether or not to believe the subject she's writing this glowing piece on is insane. It's insane, this is insane, right? Like, I just think we're doomed, man. If this is the paper of record in the United States of America.
Now I give up on them, man, I really do. So everybody serves their audience, and the New York Times audience is the elites. So they're serving them.
Do the elites like to be conned? Is that? I mean,
no, but they look. The minute she entered the elites, whether it was through fraud or not, she became a beloved elite. So the New York Times had to help her. Like they've never been this generous.
I've never
with
seen
any outsider. Any outsider. They generally write incredibly, like, skeptically of outsiders. They'll say like, Representative XYZ says this, an activist says this, but is it really true? I don't know. Like we've shown it to you hundreds of times on air. The disdain with which they share that they treat non-powerful people at places like the New York Times is disgusting. And then no matter how crooked the powerful are, no, they're gonna get serviced. They're gonna get served, and they're gonna get a healthy dose of positive propaganda from the New York Times. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.